Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. Legends. I know the world can be chaotic. Life doesn't slow down, and sometimes it feels like no one's really listening. But here, we listen. This channel has become more than just a place for stories. It's a place where people speak up about the things they've carried in silence for years, decades even. Things they never thought they'd say out loud. Tonight we've got a new batch of emails, each one written by somebody just like you. Someone who saw something, heard something, or lived through something they just could not explain. No fanfare, no spotlight. Just people telling the truth the best way they know how. If you yourself have had an encounter that you would like to share with me or possibly with everyone else here on the channel, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. My email will be in the description below this video. I want to thank you for listening tonight, and I'm just going to jump right in. So whether you're on the road, working the night shift, or just laying in bed with one earbud in and the lights off, settle in. And remember, you are not alone out there. Everyone grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Everything inside me was screaming that I probably shouldn't be doing this. This isn't going to help me forget it, I know that. But last week I was driving that same road and I caught myself looking at the exact patch of trees without even realizing it. I guess that's how this works, huh? It doesn't go away. It just gets a little quieter with time. I'd just gotten into it with my ex. Again. She wasn't my ex at the time, but let's just say it was headed that way. It was a fight where it just didn't matter at all who's right. You're just stuck in it, circling the drain. We've all been there. I grabbed my jacket and my keys and just said I needed out. That was around 10:30 at night. I live out in Del Barton, near Mingo Central. If you've ever been through there, you know it's nothing but hills and old strip mine roads. You take a wrong turn and you'll either end up in the trees or a dead end full of deer. I wasn't trying to go anywhere in particular, I just drove. I wasn't playing any music, no podcast, just me and the sound of the tires, the usual cool-off drive. I ended up pulling off on one of those old roads near the ridge line, maybe 2 miles up from an old gravel plant. I'd been up there before, years ago, with a buddy who ran coonhounds. It's just a wide, flat bend in the road where you can see the valley lights down below if you cut the engine and kill the headlights. That's what I did. So I'm just sitting there, windows cracked, dead quiet. No wind, no bugs. I remember thinking that was really weird, the no bugs thing. It was October, but still kind of warm out. I had a chew in and was just sitting there thinking and looking around, angry at the world. I looked forward and saw something move in the trees directly in front of me. My headlights were off. The only light was from a little bit of moon that was trying its best to peek through some clouds. I thought maybe it was a buck. It was something thick, moving just beyond where the brush thinned out. But then it stepped out of the thicket. That's the part I don't know how to explain here. It was the movements. It wasn't low to the ground, it was tall and upright. I mean, this thing was giant. It's like if you took one of those giant dogs they use to hunt bear. I can't think of the name, but someone will know what I'm talking about. If you took one of those and stood it up on its back legs, but gave it arms like the Rock. I sat up straight immediately and kind of half reached for the pistol under my seat, but I didn't touch it yet. I was just watching watching this thing walk along the edge of the road like it was looking for something. It wasn't stalking around like you would expect from a wild animal. It wasn't just aimlessly wandering, it was following a path. It wasn't stumbling around like it was dumb. This thing was careful, like a person or a man. At one point, I think it caught a whiff of me. It stopped. I know it did because it cocked its head toward my direction like it heard something, even though I hadn't moved a muscle. My eyes were wide. I didn't even blink. It was, at the most, 60 yards in front of me. Its shape made no damn sense. Its arms were long, the legs were bent wrong. The silhouette looked like someone wearing a wolf costume. But somehow it wasn't fake. The head was real. The way it moved was real. I'll never forget those dog piss in the snow yellow eyes staring at me from that tree line. It stood there for a long time, then it just walked back into the thicket without making any sounds at all. It's like this thing was a ghost. It's like the ground didn't even matter to it, like it didn't even need to step on it. I know how crazy that sounds, but it was touching the ground, but it didn't seem like it was. I don't even know if that makes sense. Probably not. But it's like it could just move through whatever it wanted. I didn't dare get out. I didn't turn the headlights on. I just waited. I don't know how long I sit there, maybe 15, 20 minutes before I finally turned the key and crept out of there with just my parking lights on. I got home just before 1 in the morning. I walked in, sat on the edge of the couch, and didn't say a word to her. She could tell something was off, but I just shook my head. We never talked about it. I drive past there sometimes, but I never turn, not even when I'm by myself. This was without a doubt a Dogman, right? Well, if not, whatever it was, it didn't care what I thought or anyone else. That thing moved with authority. It definitely knew that I was there. It registered me. That's the hardest part for me to come to terms with. That something is out there that looks like that, and is also highly intelligent and thinks. A truly terrifying thought. Thank you, Anonymous. Hey, Reels. My name's Scott. This took place in 2018 in southern Mississippi. I worked for a timber operation that had some leased land near the edge of the DeSoto National Forest. It wasn't private land, not entirely, but it was managed and we had the rights to be on it. Mostly pine and oak. Not thick, just rows and rows of planted pines. I was out there running one of the company's side-by-sides doing equipment checks. Sometimes people steal fuel or mess with the chainsaws and the loaders, so I'd do laps, especially before a weekend. Most days, nothing really happened. A lot of dirt roads and a few deer here and there. Maybe a little sly fox runs through, if you get lucky. That morning, I found some weird tracks. They didn't look anything like boot prints, and not paws either. I don't even know what to call them. They were bigger than my damn foot, and I wear a size 12. They were shaped like a dog print, but more human in length. The toes looked splayed out, but long. There were claw impressions, too. Looked like sharp, long ones. Whatever it was, it walked upright on 2 legs. That freaked me completely out. I thought the guys were trying to play a prank. The prints weren't side by side like a quadruped. They were staggered like how people walk. I stopped and looked around. There was nothing around me, no sound. And that's the other weird thing. There's always something going on out there. Bugs, birds, anything to make a racket. It's the middle of the woods. It's supposed to be noisy. This time it was dead still. I took a few pictures of those tracks and left. I do have those pictures, and they're on my old phone. As soon as I find it, I'll send them to you. I just told myself it had to be a joke. Probably a prank. It had to be. Maybe one of the guys had made costume boots or something trying to be funny. But I didn't really believe that. And now I know. About a week later, I was back out there. And now something's following me. I'd park the UTV and walk into the tree rows checking for dumped fuel cans or busted fencing. And I'd hear it. It never got real close, just enough to mess with me. A crack, a snap, sometimes a low grunt like a man trying to clear his throat, but not quite. Always behind me, always keeping up with me, pacing me. At one point I shouted out, "You're about 2 minutes from getting shot." And I meant it. I always carry a Glock 20 with a full mag of Underwood 10mm. Hey, I carry a 10mm myself. Nice choice. Definitely not a toy. If somebody was messing around out there, I was ready to put holes in them. But nobody ever showed. The third time out there, I finally see it. Broad daylight. Noon. Sun directly overhead. I'm turning down one of the far logging roads, and there it was, dead center, standing in the road. I don't care what anybody says. You don't mistake something like that. You're not going to say, maybe it's a bear. It's not a man in a ghillie suit. This thing is big, ugly, an upright dog. Black or real dark brown, I couldn't tell with the dust in the air, but it had ears up top and a mouth that didn't hang open like a panting dog. It looked like it was set in a frown permanently, like it was annoyed, just looking at me. The arms were down, long, and definitely too long for a bear. The chest, it was ripped like a human athlete, like it worked out every day. We locked eyes for maybe 4 seconds. That's about all I could handle. I'll never forget the feeling I had at that time. I just sat there with my hand hovering over my holster. I don't know what happened. I just wanted to pull it out and start firing, but I couldn't make my hand grab onto the grip. Then it took off. Not like a deer or anything else I've ever seen move. Actually, it moved like a person sprinting, like an Olympic runner, only faster and smoother than anything I've ever seen. It hit the trees, and this thing was gone with the wind. I did tell my supervisor, although I hesitated because I knew he was going to laugh, and he did. Told me he better not catch me drinking on the job. I hadn't had a drop of alcohol in 3 years. After that, weird crap kept happening. Gas siphoned from one of the machines, but no footprints behind. A cable that had been ripped clean off a bobcat, not cut, ripped, like snapped under force. One guy swore he saw something run behind his truck at dark, but when we walked over, there was nothing there. No tracks either. That fall, 2 of the contractors quit with no notice. They just left their stuff and never came back. One of them had a note folded up under his seat of his ATV. It just said, "I'm not sticking around with that thing out there." That was it. No name, no signature, just a slight warning. I've moved on to another job since then, indoor work now. I still carry, and I don't go near timber anymore. People can say this is fake or that I made it up, but here's the thing. I saw it. You didn't. More than once, actually. And the first time, it looked right into my soul. And that's the day I changed forever. That's not something you can forget. Many prayers. Scott. Reels. I don't want to give my name for this. I hope that's okay. I actually decided to write this because one of your last videos was about nighttime hunters getting stalked by these things. Yeah, that upload brought me to my knees nearly. I've been trying to get away from what happened for 3 years, and now I'm wondering if I ever really will. I served a little over 6 years as an infantry marine, deployed a couple times, nothing big, did my job, came home, settled down near my brother's land in northwestern Montana. I've been hunting and hiking out there since I was a kid, and I always figured I'd die in these woods. Just not in a stupid way. Anyway, this all happened in late September of 22. Me and my buddy, we'll just call him Bryce, we served together, a solid dude. We were night hunting for yotes. That year, the damn things were getting close to people's houses, even bold enough to go after livestock during daylight, so we figured we'd thin them out a little bit. Bryce had a thermal scope mounted on his rifle, and I was running night vision with a suppressed AR. We weren't drunk, weren't being stupid. We were always safe. Everything about that night started out normal. We parked my truck in a little pull-off spot on a back road near an old timber trail. We hiked maybe a mile in, found a clear cut overlooking some brush and rocks. That spot was perfect. You could hear everything moving. We set up some calls and waited. It was cold and quiet, clear sky. I remember when this all went sideways. I kept looking at the stars, trying to ground myself. It didn't help at all. So around 1:30 in the morning, Bryce says he's going to walk 100 yards down the slope to cover the other side of the ridge. We were using radios to stay in touch. Just push-to-talk units clipped to our plate carriers. I told him I'd stay up top with the call unit and see what circled around. We split up. About 10 minutes pass, and I'm watching, not hearing much, maybe a rabbit or something scurrying around here and there. Then I hear something else. Hey, I think I found one. It was Bryce's voice. I froze mid-scan. The thing is, he didn't call me on the radio. That voice came from the woods, from somewhere way off to my left. I waited a few seconds later. My radio does crackle, and this time I hear him say on the damn radio, "Hey, I'm not seeing anything down here. You good up there?" I clicked in and told him, "Did you just call out my name?" He said, "No, what do you mean?" I paused, and I told him I heard it. It's clear as day. And I asked him, "That wasn't you?" Now here's where things get trippy. He laughed and said, "No, bro, you good? You're probably just tired, man." Except that voice I heard wasn't just similar, it was identical. Bryce has this rasp to his voice from years of smoking, and whoever or whatever said those words, nailed it, right down to the tone and rhythm, and it came from the trees. I didn't respond, I just slowly stood up, turned off the call, and started packing my stuff. The hair on my arms and neck was standing up through my jacket. I've felt fear before, the kind where you're kicking down doors in places you shouldn't be. But this was different. This was old, primal, like I wasn't supposed to be where I was. I was out of place. I was outclassed. There was something out there way more dangerous than me and my gun. Then I hear it again. Said my name, loud and clear. Same voice, coming from the same spot. But the second time it didn't say anything else, just dragged my name out like it was trying to practice the shape of it. I didn't answer, I didn't move. I remember just turning nothing but my eyes, leaving my head still, and I saw a silhouette between two big trees. Bigger than a man, way bigger. like someone had stuffed a bear into human skin and forgot to tuck the arms in properly. It was crouching, not necessarily hiding, just crouching and watching. I don't think it realized I'd seen it yet. Right then, my radio crackled and scared the hell out of me, and Bryce says I'm heading back up. Are you packing up? I whispered, just move fast. Now I knew when I said this he was going to know something was wrong. No idea how I said that with a steady voice, but I did. I turned my NV off and walked in near pitch black back toward our rendezvous point. I didn't try to run. I tried not to panic. I kept my ears tuned to every step behind me, whatever was out there. Didn't follow me close. It didn't need to. I didn't tell Bryce the full story until about 2 days after. He just thought I was tired or spooked by some sound. But I know what I heard. I know his voice. Something mimicked it perfectly. And it wasn't a person. No one out there could have made that shape in the trees. No human can move like that. I've read a lot of these Dogman stories since then. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was for certain what I saw. It wasn't a bear or a man, and it damn sure wasn't anything I was trained to deal with. I still hunt, but not very much at night, not anymore. If you do share this, just don't clean it up too much. I ain't a writer. I'm just a guy who finally needed to say something. Anonymous. I didn't clean it up at all, brother. Just how you sent it. Thanks for reaching out. Hey, Reels. I'm not your typical person that would write stuff like this down. Your channel was playing on my drive back from Winslow the other day, and the night you talked about that guy seeing something in his deer stand, I started getting cold sweats. It flooded my mind with visions of my own encounter. Been carrying my own version of that story around since 2016. I'm 47 now, and I've been hunting since I was probably 10. My dad taught me everything I know. How to glass a ridge, how to track fresh scat, how to move without making a damn sound. He passed away in 13, and I kept the tradition alive, mainly chasing elk and coyote out near the Sitgreaves Forest. This happened a few miles north of Heber, mid-January 2016. Cold as sin, maybe 15 degrees at dawn. I was running my 223 with a thermal scope and ATN. I picked up on a Black Friday deal the year before. It wasn't your top-line optic, but it did the job well enough. I had it zeroed at 150, and I dropped coyotes at over 200 with no problem. This wasn't a night hunt. It started as a day sit, but I stayed out till dark because the coyotes were being cagey that week. Anyway, the wind was cutting east that evening, and I was set up tucked between two pines off a game trail. About an hour after the sun went down, things got weird as hell. No howling, no chatter, just dead quiet. You know when the wind stops and the woods go quiet trying to tell you, hey, you need to get out of here. Something's wrong. It was like that. I flipped my thermal back on and started scanning the draw. I catch heat way off. I'd say 400 yards at first. Looked like a big dog, but it was standing fully upright. This thing had proportion. Arms, legs. I could see the arms swing when it moved. It had pointed ears, a giant long snout. It had the kind of bipedal gait you see in a person wearing a weight vest, slow and heavy. My heart started pounding before my brain even figured out what was happening. I tried to get a better reading, but the thing would move behind the tree line, then peek out. It knew I was watching it, or at least it was looking straight through me like it did. This is where I say what nobody wants to say. I raised my rifle, not to shoot, not yet, but to track it. And when I did, that thing stopped and stepped out into the open like it wanted me to get a good look. Broad chest, very long legs. I've seen wolves. I've tracked them. Man, this wasn't a wolf, and it sure as hell wasn't a person. The eye shine through the thermal was hot, glowing like a lantern. I swear to God this thing grinned at me. I didn't squeeze the trigger, I don't know why. I had the crosshair center mass and I could have dumped a full mag before it even closed the distance. But something in me said don't do it. I started backing out, made the hike back to my truck with my rifle at low ready, and didn't tell a soul for years. I didn't even mention anything to my wife about it, and she is, without a doubt, my best friend. That stretch of woods, yeah, I won't be back out there anymore. And don't think it's because I'm scared. I'm not some whiny, spineless guy that jumps at every shadow that moves. The way I see it is it makes about as much sense as going into a cave that you know there's a giant pissed-off grizzly in there. It just wasn't a very smart decision. I wouldn't recommend going after one of these things. I don't care what caliber your gun is. They're just too damn big. But that one didn't show any aggression toward me. It let me walk away. But I do think it wanted me to see it. That eats at me every day. Take care, brother. Keep this channel alive. It's a great thing. Anonymous. I'm not some big backcountry hunter or anything. I mostly stick to whitetail and some turkey here in Iowa, all private land hunting. I grew up around hunting. Just, it's what we did. We got a few hundred acres of timber broken up by corn and bean fields. It's been in my family for a couple generations now. Most of the time I bow hunt. That's my passion. That's what I was doing when all this happened. Late season, January 2020. It had snowed the night before. Not a heavy snow, just enough for a fresh layer. Good for tracking. The temps were down in the low teens. That morning I got out to my stand well before daylight. And I never went out with just the bow. I usually kept my rangefinder in my chest rig and a sidearm on my right hip. A Springfield XD in 9mm. Just a habit, and I would recommend you gain that same habit. I remember something being off right away. The woods just felt different than any other day. It wasn't a peaceful kind of feeling. Even the dogs from the next farm over weren't barking, and that is unheard of. The sun comes up and I don't see squat. No movement. I give it another hour and then decide to climb down and stalk a bit just for the sake of doing something. Maybe push a bedded buck, who knows. I headed toward this little swale that cuts between two ridges, thinking maybe something bedded down in the thick stuff. I was about 50 yards from the edge when I see these prints. When I first saw them, they looked like coyote, but they were huge. I saw the length between the strides as well. Not just distance, but depth. Whatever made those tracks was heavy, like it was putting its weight down through the crust and sinking deep into the soft layer beneath. I knelt down and looked at one, and it just wasn't right. Bigger than any dog print, long toes and what looked like claw points, maybe half an inch past the front. So now I'm on full alert. I unclipped my release and dropped my hand toward my sidearm. 10 minutes later, I'm about 100 yards into that swale when I catch something moving uphill to my left. I crouch and draw my binoculars, and man, describing this thing is difficult. It freaks me out just thinking about it. I saw a shape, standing up, 2 legs, real wide across the back. It was walking slow, but the arms were swinging too far. The legs, they were angled, weird, almost like it had a longer foot or something. I crouched behind the tree and just watched it. It was about 80 yards up and never even looked my way. I think I held my breath the entire time. The thing to me is no one ever stresses how quiet a creature this size can be. It's just not physically possible for something that big to be able to move that silently. If most of these things behave like the one I saw, I can promise you now, if it don't want you to hear it, you're not going to. After maybe a minute, it turned off and disappeared behind that ridge. I stood there for a while, then booked it back to the farm road. I've never told anyone except my cousin who hunts the property too. He just stared at me for a long time and said, "That's not the first time somebody's seen that thing out there." I still bow hunt, but I don't go in alone anymore. And now I carry a 357 instead of the 9mm. If something like that ever comes at me, I at least want the satisfaction of making it feel some pain, maybe bleed a little, because a 9mm won't do squat to one of these things. Anonymous. Reels. I'm a quiet guy. I don't talk much, especially to strangers. But I figure if there's any perfect time to talk about this, it's probably going to be now. Just call me Ron. I'm 61. Been hunting since I was big enough to carry a .22. I live a few miles outside of Winnemucca, and we got open land for days out here. Sagebrush, rocky ridges, dry creek beds. The kind of terrain most folks wouldn't survive one night in. It was October of 2016, I'll never forget it. It was rifle season for mule deer, just opened up. I'd tagged a decent buck about a week earlier. It wasn't anything to write home about, but he dressed out nicely. I wasn't hunting anymore that season, but I kept scouting. Habit, I guess. Love of the hunt. I'd go out some evenings just to sit glassing hills and checking game trails. It relaxes me. Makes me feel like I'm doing something useful. And like I said, I'm not much of a people person. I enjoy the outdoors. Not as much as I used to. That night, I brought my 223 Wild that I'd built myself off a PSA upper with a free float M-lock rail and a 1:6 time vortex scope. It was a short-range glass, but solid. The coyotes had become way too thick around my property and started to become a problem. I'd been meaning to thin out a few before winter came, so I figured why not take the AR and knock some dust off of it and do some sitting. I parked off a little BLM access road maybe 2 miles east of Bloody Run Hills. That's where I used to see packs of coyotes come through at dark. I hiked in maybe a half mile and found a ridge with good elevation. I got down behind these big-ass rocks, flipped my bipod down and started watching the sagebrush below with my thermal monocular. I picked up 2 small heat signatures right away. It looked like rabbits. Unlucky for them, the thing I was looking for was looking for rabbits. As I was watching them, I saw something moving down near a dry wash. At first, it was just heat, just this huge heat signature. In my mind, I don't know what else it could be besides a stray cow, or maybe a Mustang from one of the wild herds. This thing was huge. But as I kept looking, neither one of those animals fit the shape. I knew it was predatory because of how low it was to the ground when it moved. It wasn't like a four-legger. It was more standing, more upright than that. I raised the binocular again and locked in. The thing was standing still now. You ever seen something and your body just locks up? Like your instincts already know you're not supposed to be seeing this and you're in a world of trouble. Whatever this was, it had two legs. Big legs. The upper body looked way too broad to be that of a human or anything else. This was something I'd never seen before. It was like, and I've heard this before, but it fits. It was like a linebacker, and someone gave him another 2 feet of height. But the head, God Almighty. It had the muzzle and ears of a wolf. You know how a German shepherd looks when they turn toward you? That exact silhouette, but damn near 8 feet tall. It stepped out in the open, and that's when I saw the eye shine. Even without night vision, it had this faint glow. Not like a cat or coyote, but still visible, almost orange. It looked right up toward my ridge, and I swear on my wife's grave, God rest her soul, it knew exactly where I was sitting, and there is no way that should be possible. I leveled my rifle and clicked the safety off. I didn't flinch. I was pretty steady. This thing took 2 long strides forward, and I'm telling you, the gait was something to behold. It was not bobbing. There was no bobbing motion, no hesitation. This thing was heavy, but it appeared to almost glide in a way. And as silly as this sounds, like it was wearing roller skates. I heard this thing start letting out these growls. It was a low and mean growl, like a warning. I got that feeling again, like a big predator is there, and I'm looking at it, and it's daring me to do one stupid thing. Make any type of sudden stupid movement, and you're mine. I didn't squeeze the trigger even though I had a perfect broadside. I don't know why. I should have. I regret it. I wish I had. But, to be fair, that rifle probably wouldn't have done a damn thing to something that big. Not with 223. Not at that distance. It turned and walked back toward the wash and slipped off into the shadows and was gone. I waited until the battery in my thermal died. Then I waited some more. I don't even remember walking back to the truck, just blurry. I just remember unlocking the door and sitting in the seat like I'd just come back from combat. My boots were muddy as hell, my hands were shaking, and I hadn't fired a single shot. I've hunted elk that'll charge you, kill you. I've faced down a sow black bear once in Idaho. I've walked the mountains alone for 4 decades, and I've never felt fear like that night. I told my buddy Dan, ex-Army, used to run recon missions, and he just looked at me for a long time and said, "You saw a Dogman." So I guess that's what it was. I didn't know anything about a Dogman until he told me. But I guarantee you one thing. If you don't believe and you see one, you'll never forget it, and you'll know what it is the next time. If there is a next time. If you've got hunters listening to your show, I want to tell them this. There's a lot of things out there that don't belong on any tag list. If you see it, I urge you not to shoot. and especially don't run. Just slowly make your way out of there, and never, ever go back alone. Ron. Hey, brother. My name's Curtis, and I don't tell this story lightly. If you get this reference, we can be friends. I've hunted just about everything that walked or crawled at one time or another. My dad was a trapper, and I've been running dogs since I was 12. These days I stick mostly to deer and coyote. Got a few rifles I rotate between, but my go-to for predator control's an AR-15 I built out myself. It shoots .223 wild, so I can swap between 5.56 and .223, depending on what I'm doing. This rifle was a killer. Never had a problem putting a coyote down with it. Anyway, my encounter, this incident, as I call it, took place in January of 21, down in Pope County, Arkansas. I lease about 600 acres that butts up against the Ozarks. Real rocky, rough terrain. Real brushy, but good coyote country. The deer numbers have been dropping the past couple seasons, and I was starting to suspect it wasn't just pressure from other hunters. I'd been hearing weird vocals at night. Didn't sound like coyotes to me. Way too deep and drawn out. I decided to go out one night after work. The temps were dropping below freezing. There was no moon to be seen. It was dead calm. Perfect thermal conditions. I parked my truck on the south edge of the lease and hiked in about 600 yards to a ridge. I go sit up prone, bipod out, rifle zeroed for 100. I set out the call and ran a few distress sequences. Just a jackrabbit and some pup whines. Within 10 minutes, I got eyes. Not one pair, 3. Spaced out maybe 30, 40 yards from each other, real low. But they weren't acting like coyotes. They weren't displaying any curiosity. They were holding still, watching, like they were waiting. One of them kept pacing side to side, but never got any closer. At that point, I wasn't really sure what I was dealing with. It kind of acted like maybe some stray feral dogs. Sometimes they'll act like that. But the pacing one, I watched it stand up. And I don't mean it reared back like a bear or stretched out. I mean this thing stood completely up and stayed there on 2 legs. And then, to my exploding brain, this thing started walking parallel to me. I watched it through the scope as best I could through all the shaking. I don't care who calls me crazy or acts like or calls me a coward. It had the signature of a man, but the build of something canine. It even had the digitigrade legs, and I didn't even know there was a word for that until I looked it up. I've shot hundreds of coyotes. This wasn't a coyote. I kept my rifle aimed at it, but didn't take a shot. It just didn't feel right to me. Something about it. Maybe the way it looked back toward the others like it was coordinating made me feel like I'd just made a mistake by coming out there alone. Then the other 2 stood up. Now, I don't panic easy. I hold well under pressure. But when all 3 of them rose up like that, no wobbling, just natural movements, I flipped the safety back on, grabbed my stuff, and got out of there. I never looked away, just eased my way out the same way I came. I never lost visual through the thermal. They just followed me with their heads like they were letting me go. Like they either spared me or just wasn't interested at all. I didn't even holster the rifle when I got back to the truck. I just climbed in with it across my lap and locked the doors. I sat there for a few seconds trying to figure out how the hell I was going to explain this to anyone without sounding like I'd lost my damn mind. I couldn't even hardly believe it myself. I've never been in a mental state like that before. Reels, old buddy, here's the thing. I've been out 100 nights since that. I've heard strange things, sure, you always do in the woods at night, but I never seen that again. I talked to one guy that I trust, another local hunter, and he told me, yeah, they're out there. You just don't see them unless they want you to. I know exactly what I saw, and that's why I haven't told anybody else until now. I really appreciate how fast you replied to my email, and I even appreciate it more that you're trying to let people know the dangers of the woods, not just the animals that you're aware of. There's things out there that you can't even imagine. If you're out there, please take precautions and be as safe as you can, considering the circumstances. You can only be so prepared. Just keep your wits about you, trust your instincts, and cover as many bases as you can. And I think you'll be fine. You're a heck of a fellow, Reels. The world would be better with more guys like you in it. Thanks, brother. Curtis. My first experience was seeing a face in my room at the right of the door just watching me. I was 8 to 10. I couldn't move nor scream. Around 10, me and my grandma and cousin Terry were hanging out clothes. We turned to go into the house and a shadow crossed the kitchen window. Me and my granny saw it. We stood outside until my mom come from work. She was a fisherman. She went into the trunk, grabbed a rifle, went through every room and found nothing. We definitely saw it. No way they could leave us without seeing them or it. Around 11 or 12, we were playing near the creek. 3 of my cousins. Out of nowhere, we all heard the cracking of branches. We heard it run toward us. We took off. I remember worrying about Terry, my cousin, the youngest, who was, let's just say, not as athletic. I was scared it would catch him because he was slower than us, but he made it. Last year, he passed from what I hear an overdose. Crushed me, even to this very day. A few miles away from the creek's a dirt road. We as youngsters, 18 to 22, would go park and hang out with girls. This one night on a Friday, me and 2 chicks, my cousin Ricky, same thing, cracking of branches. We run, jump in the car, never, ever going back. We'd been there too many times, never anything. That night it ran to us. June of 24, I have video of orbs flying over the house for 9 minutes. After that night, my life changed. August 2024. I'm in the carport researching Dogman and UFOs, etc. I stand to go into the house. A black figure crossed the door. I saw it immediately. Fear of the worst I've ever felt went all over me. I stood in the carport, back to the wall, for an hour, scared to death. This is happening at my girlfriend's house. She was out of town. I'd be in her yard and hear it walk up to the edge of the bush and stop. Did this several times, but I never saw anything. Okay, now we are at the end. I moved out because God's telling me to. We weren't married, so it wasn't right to lay with her. The night I moved out, 1 to 3 a.m., because I didn't want the neighbors to see me move. It's kind of embarrassed. Anyhow, as I moved my stuff, something said, to shine your flashlight. I did. I saw a deer. I threw a rock at it and it ran off. Then I shined my light and these yellow-green eyes beside a tree were staring at me. I was so upset and hurt by the move that I threw a rock. Nothing. I broke a block and threw a big piece of it. It moved, and there was no sound. 40 yards across the creek, I see blinking of the eyes. In my mind, as long as you're over there, I don't care. Every so often, as I'd come out, it was across the creek. Now, as I think back, that underbrush was thick and tall. 3 to 4 feet of little trees in the eyes I could still see looking at me. Not thinking at the time, but it wasn't a coyote. It would have been hidden due to the brush. My last trip out, I shined my light, and it was gone. My truck's running, and as I crossed my body with the light, there it was by the tree. Those eyes never blinked. At this point, I froze, thinking this thing's tall because the yard goes down. Now in my mind, I heard, "What are you?" I thought the same thing. I reached in my pocket, pulled my .22, and pulled the trigger. It was like it closed its eyes and then was gone. No sound, nothing. The one part I left out, it moved its head towards me. The nose was like a dog, moist looking due to the streetlight. I also saw the right ear angled back as it tilted its head sideways as if it was confused. That's when I shot and got the heck on. Night 3 at my home outside, I heard the sound like an owl, but it's not an owl. I have the sound on video. I hate this. I heard stuff, seen a blue orb in my room go out the window. I feel like I'm going crazy. Anonymous. Hey, Reels. My name is Vanessa. I've been interested in dogmen for a very long time. I find them fascinating. While I was listening to your channel, my boyfriend Doug started getting really interested in dogmen as well. I listen to your channel constantly. Its dogmen encounters are kind of weird obsession of mine, and your channel is really the only one that reads encounters that I actually believe. Though I would love to hear the one about your encounters. I have missed a few. Anyway, when me and my boyfriend get stressed, we go for mountain rides, and they are very calming usually. We try new back roads and take the truck down random ATV trails like Sarver Road by Presley Ridge. Yeah, that Presley Ridge. The bad boys' school, though I don't know if it's still open. I often stare blankly out the window to hide my tears because of how I feel. We first went to an overlook, and as we were turning into the overlook, I saw the self-illuminated eyes, as Doug called them, when I told him about it after we got out of the truck to check out the overlook. When we walked up to the overlook and walked back down toward the truck, we walked off the rocks, and suddenly it got so quiet like no sound whatsoever. Now, as many times as we've been riding back roads, etc., this has only happened a couple times, once on Colby Road, near Elk County, and sometimes outside our trailer in Carmichael's. And it's not an area where we are away from people, but there are woods everywhere. We don't really chill outside our trailer at night after hearing our own voices saying hi right outside. Doug and I agree that a skinwalker thing, the whistling, using your voice to taunt you, and such things are a skinwalker kind of thing for sure. Not gonna lie, that scares us. But back to the overlook. It got really quiet. So we got back in the truck, and since Doug didn't see the eyes, I don't think he believed me, but we went on. We kept riding. We went up to Sugarloaf Road, and when we go past a cemetery especially, one that's supposed to be haunted, Doug and I like to stop, and he uses his EVP app. Well, the whole time we were driving, the only sound is our truck. At the Sugarloaf Cemetery, it was still dead quiet, pun intended. But for real, it was eerily quiet, and we started to feel that feeling like we were being watched. Doug turned on his app, and right away we got, "I come from a dark place," then footsteps follow. And the one that got us to get out of there was a tree above us cracked, and then we got an EVP that says above. Often we're just like, okay, but we believe in this stuff because of other things in our lives we deal with daily. This time, though, we took it seriously because we just heard what sounded like footsteps in a tree above us, and Doug says, "We're going to go." And of course, before we leave a haunted spot, we let all spirits, etc., know they are not welcome to follow us. And trust me, I know how far-fetched this sounds, but we are into weird things. We know. Anyway, we take this turn onto Sarver Road, which is an ATV trail. And it is still so quiet, and we hear a tree crack, and there's a tree in front of us that was laying across the road. It was shaking, and I pointed and said, "Look, do you see that it's shaking?" But when he finally looked up, it had stopped. So we went under the tree, so again, I don't think he believed me. Then we both heard a howl in the distance, but it was weird. It also sounded like yelling. We look at each other, and he says, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I gotta find somewhere to turn around." I looked back out of my window and said, "Well, you don't want to do it here." He asked why. I said, "Because it's really wet here, and you hit that, you're going to slide into a drop-off on my side." He looks and sees it and says, "Yeah, that looks bad." He finally turns off the EVP app we've been ignoring that he had forgotten about and starts looking at his phone while driving down this very not safe trail. But he does this a lot, and I pull out the spotlight to look ahead and see if there's an outlet. In the middle of the road, there's a big black two-legged, hairy, black pointy-eared thing with a long nose. Black, hairy, and I turned my head to the right to show him where the end of its nose was. At this point, I think he saw I wasn't messing around. He said, "Are you sure it wasn't a bear?" I said, "Really? I've been around people hunting forever. Live in Elk County for years. There are bears everywhere. I know what a damn bear looks like. That wasn't a bear." The first one, we blew it off and tried to BS ourselves like it was coyote. But this time it was closer, and this time I felt it, and we knew it was not a coyote. Doug started driving a little faster because we are running low on gas, and we aren't afraid, but we aren't stupid either. We know we got to get off the road. I heard that scream howl 2 more times closer each time. Then we get to the end of Sarver Road, and not a couple feet in the brush beside me, I hear a real deep and low guttural growl, and it rumbled my chest cavity. I asked, "Did you hear that?" He said, "No, what did you hear?" I said, "Are you serious right now? You didn't hear that growl?" It was from right there. I pointed into the brush, and I think he could tell at this point I was starting to freak out. After 3 tries, we finally made it back to the main road. Finally, the crickets and nature could be heard again. We headed home, and I told him, "I think I know what it was." And he nodded and said, "Yeah, me too." This is a second email from Vanessa. Encounter by the Steel Tower. Doug reminded me this actually wasn't my first Dogman encounter when I told him you had messaged me back. He said, "Don't you remember that thing in Jummansville up on Washington Springs Road?" I just froze for a second and said, "Oh my God, I forgot all about that." So about a year ago, we were riding up in Jummansville, not sure, just checking out some of Doug's old stomping grounds. This was before he got all obsessed with Dogman. All the time, Bigfoot was still his main thing. We were on a ride. This was back before we started butting heads, and he wanted to show me a spot where he used to party and camp when he was younger. I was like, "Okay, cool, let's go." Right before we started heading up the hill toward the tower, I heard this growl and then a howl. Both of them hit me right in the chest. I looked at Doug and asked if he'd heard that. He shook his head and said, "No, what did you hear?" I told him what I'd heard, and he just goes, "Well, there's bears up here." I said, "That wasn't a bear. I know what a bear sounds like. I felt it in my chest. It reminded me of what I hear in those Dogman encounters." He just blinked and said, "What's a dogman?" So I explained everything I knew at the time, and while I was talking, right before we headed up toward the tower, I caught something at the bottom of the hill. I said, "Holy shit, look." Doug says, "What?" And I said, "Red eyes right at the bottom of the hill." He finally turned to look, but they were gone by then. He actually reminded me of all this recently. He said every morning when he leaves for work, he gets this sudden, overwhelming urge to run to the truck, like something's watching him, like something is coming for him. I told him, "Doug, that's considered an encounter." That night, after we came back from Jumminsville, I pulled up a few Dogman videos on YouTube and showed them to him. I also told him about your channel, and ever since then, he's been obsessed. We listen to you every single night now. Friends, legends, family. Thank you to everyone who took the time to send in an email for tonight's video. It's not easy putting those kinds of memories into words, especially when they've been bottled up for so long. So to each and every one of you who shared your story here, thank you. You're helping more people than you realize. And to all you out there listening, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up every night, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and helping this channel become something way bigger than just stories. Y'all are true legends. If you enjoyed tonight's video, do me a favor. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Every little bit helps this community to grow, and you never know who might need to hear one of these stories. Before I go, just a few parting thoughts. If you're out in the woods, whether you're hunting, hiking, or just clearing your head, stay alert. Keep something on you for protection. Trust your instincts. Don't second-guess that feeling in your gut. Most folks who've sent in the stories never expected things to go sideways until they did. All right, everyone, stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always,
good night.